Hi everyone, my name is LaRon Quarles and I am a certified IUT trichologist and hair loss professional. I solve a lot of hair questions for people who have no idea how to put things together. As a certified trichologist, when clients usually arrive, how I help them is putting everything about their body functionally into perspective, how the nervous system affects cortisol, how the digestive system affects hair growth and affects hair loss and affects yeast and skin issues, how weakened guts have autoimmune side effects. I help clients put things in perspective, and today I'm going to talk to you about sugar, blood sugar, insulin, and insulin resistance, and how this translates into basic issues for the hair, the scalp, and the body. A little bit about me. I want to tell you a brief story. And then as soon as I learned of the concept, I said, that was me. I had no idea, but I had never even heard of the term insulin resistance. I am now 57. I think about early 35 to 40. I was having some challenges with my eyes. My eyes were in deep, intense pain. They would hurt so bad. I would blink and I would just have to close my eyes so that they can just stop hurting just for a second. I thought maybe they were dry, and it wasn't that they were dry. They were just hurting. They were on fire. I would have problems with my scalp. My scalp would be very red. It would be tender to the touch. And if I ate inflammatory foods, sometimes it made it feel worse. And another thing that kept happening is I kept having restless leg pain. I kept having very sharp pains in my toes. If you touched my toes, or if I went and got a pedicure, if the manicures went around my toes were on fire. And I used to think, what are you doing to my toes? And she says, I'm not doing anything. When I put all those pieces together after learning the term insulin resistance, I said, oh my goodness, that was me. I had no idea that a lot of what I was experiencing, frequent yeast infections, eye pain, foot pain, joint pain, very, very funny sensory nerve response in my legs. I'm trying to describe it because it was like restless leg syndrome. Like my legs just kept tingling, and I would have to kind of like shake for it to feel better. But things like that, they wind up taking their effects on you. And when you think about how the dynamic occurs, it makes sense. So when my clients come in, I have to basically help them understand why they're having problems with dandruff, problems with seborrhea, problems with male and female pattern looking hair loss, hormonal hair loss, thinning hair in the crown, liver fat, high blood sugar, and how it relates to their personal experience. I have to put all that into perspective. So I'm going to share with you, when you are having thinning hair on the top of your head, a lot of this is the blame. It may not be male and female pattern hair loss, but hormonal based hair loss because of hormonal fluctuations and disturbances. So I'm going to share a couple concepts with you that may make sense, that may relate to you, that may have you just saying to yourself, okay, I need to do something about it. I may need to make some changes. Today, I want to talk again, like I said, about sugar, high blood sugar, insulin, and insulin resistance. These create hormonal issues and hormonal disturbances for the top of your head. When clients arrive at my trichology clinic here in Pleasantville, New Jersey, they're usually concerned with the very top of the vertex, which is above the occipital. They're concerned mainly with this vertex. Sometimes I'm evaluating the mid scalp, and often I'm evaluating the front. But the entire top area above the eyebrow, from eyebrow to eyebrow, above the top, this comprises the hormonal zone. This is the area most sensitive to hormonal disturbances, where we would have to take hairs from the donor region, which isn't as susceptible to hormonal change as the top. The top is usually very, very responsive due to hormonal changes. When we are consuming sugar in our diet, and I'll show as an example, this can of Pepsi, this ripe can of Pepsi, and please don't send me any hate mail. This is not to say anything bad about Pepsi. This is not a dig. This is just an example. This can of Pepsi has 41 grams of sugar, and the serving size is 1 can. For an average woman age 50, we only need 20 to 25 grams of sugar per day. This has 41 grams of sugar. This is essentially your sugar for the day. It means no excess food that will be broken down into sugar that will be turning into fat. No pasta, no potatoes, no starches, no rice, no oats, nothing. No juice, no coffee, no creams, no salad dressings, no ketchups, no sauces, no gravies, no processed food, because you have essentially received all of your daily allotment in this 1 can. Now, what happens when we have excess amounts of sugar, such as 3 or 4 cans of soda, tall cups of coffee with extra cream and 10 sugars and stevias and things that the body still recognizes as sugar because it doesn't know how to process it? What happens when you're eating an abundance of food, seconds and thirds and extra helpings and supersized items of food that are broken down into sugar, and the excess that our body doesn't need stored as fat? Let's talk about that dynamic. When we're consuming too much sugar, such as this can of Pepsi, 2 and 3 Pepsis, and then alcoholic drinks and foods that are loaded with sugar, salt, sodium, food colorings, and things that we don't need, that spikes our blood sugar. Now, how blood sugar works is, as it rises from what it is that we eat, insulin will rise so that it can help force that blood sugar into all of the cells. It allows the brain to take advantage of the new energy that you have given it. But sometimes, as the insulin knocks down that blood sugar, forcing it into the cell so that it can be readily available as energy, sometimes there's excess free-floating insulin. And then by the time the insulin pulls itself down, we're eating again, then we're eating a snack, and then we're drinking something that is loaded with sugar. Then over time, we're dealing with the effects of high levels of insulin. Sometimes it tears the body down to the point we start dealing with a syndrome called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is another way of saying that your body is not as sensitive to its own insulin. Sometimes the pancreas starts to shut off. Sometimes the muscles and the cells and the organs in your body start to shut off, and you're not as insulin sensitive because there's too much floating insulin, because we're giving ourselves sugar, processed foods, starches, potatoes, Chick-fil-A, restaurant food, prepared food all day long. All of that blood sugar and all of that insulin, excess floating insulin in our bodies all day long, will cause us different issues over time, and it will lead to something called insulin resistance. One of the tricks of how we live today is to break your fast in the morning with breakfast. We don't always have to break our fast in the morning if we're not hungry. We don't have to eat. We can allow our blood sugar, which is already low. We don't want to break our fast and then cause our blood sugar to rise and our insulin to rise. Sometimes we can just take a break and just not eat anything until maybe 10, 11, or 12. Then you can essentially break your fast with a brunch or with a light lunch. But as soon as you do, you're essentially causing your blood sugar and your insulin to rise. But if you'd like to take a shot at trying to keep it down, sometimes you can wait a while before you eat. I went over the term that we only need about 50 grams of sugar daily. For someone over 50, that really is 25, but I'm pushing it to 50 just to make a point. Because if you drink this, you pretty much have 41 grams of your sugar for the entire day. So I'm leaving 50 as an example. What happens when we're consuming too much sugar? We start having the effects of dandruff. And as a hair loss professional, I see a lot of dandruff and a lot of yeast and a lot of fungus, and subsequently a lot of seborrheic dermatitis. And that is where the body, as soon as it secretes sebum on the scalp, it makes the skin and the scalp irritated. When I do my dermoscope exams, I will see pockets and areas on the scalp where the scalp is very red, very irritated. When I question my client, how soon after when you shampoo does your scalp feel irritated? And they say almost immediately after they shampoo. So no amount of regular shampoo can help it. You have to work on that from the inside through your diet and your lifestyle. You have to work on modifying your gut, work on your diet, reduce some of the sugars, and then you have to use the corresponding shampoo that will help keep the yeast and the seborrhea at bay on the scalp, because essentially your sebaceous glands are responding to high amounts of sugar in the bloodstream. So it goes right into the hair bulb and the root and the papilla, and your follicle is full of sugar. Your blood is full of sugar. So subsequently, the sebaceous gland is going to be irritated because it's full of sugar. And whenever the body is exposed to a lot of sugar, the body becomes inflamed. So the skin, once the sebum secretes it onto, once the sebaceous gland secretes this onto the skin is essentially irritated. So you get seborrhea, which is sebum, and you have dermatitis, skin irritation and inflammation. So I hope this is making sense, because excess sugar can cause inflammation and irritation. It can cause things such as dandruff, yeast and yeast infections. It can accelerate the yeast and the fungus on the scalp, which is essentially at the root what dandruff is. Seborrhea at the base has yeast and fungus and acidic sebum from the gut as a consequence of how it is that we're living, which will give it seborrhea dermatitis. Now, another symptom of excess insulin in the body is skin tags. And this is extra keratin that forms on the skin because of insulin and insulin resistance and too much blood sugar floating in the body. So if you have skin tags popping up all over your skin more and more and more as you age, you have to take into account how it is that you're living. What is your diet? What is your lifestyle? Because those skin tags just don't appear for no reason. They come as a consequence of what it is that we're doing. Also, hyperpigmentation can occur on the tops of the cheeks, on the forehead, around the mouth, on the back of the neck, underneath the folds of the skin. That hyperpigmentation is acanthosis nigricans. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but that's hyperpigmentation because the melanocytes, which give our cells and our skin color, is affected. So those areas become affected as a consequence of insulin resistance and high blood sugar for too long. Additionally, if you're dealing with PCOS and you're a woman, at the core, PCOS is tied intricately to insulin and insulin resistance. PCOS allows androgens to not respond to aromatase and convert into estrogen. So you'll develop more male and female pattern hair loss, a higher hairline, a thinner hairline, a diffused hairline, because of the body's exposure to too much sugar and insulin resistance. Because the testosterone can't convert to estrogen because of the aromatase, it allows many of the eggs to stay put. They don't drop, they don't mature, and sometimes they don't shed normally from normal periods. It is an entire dynamic that only those with PCOS can understand. But PCOS can be controlled through different measures, such as ones I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, where you can fast to keep your blood sugar down. There are some things that you can do in the way of using herbs, fasting, watching what it is that you eat to help keep it at bay as much as possible. Then there are also other things that your doctor can help you with as well. Prediabetes is also a consequence of high blood sugar, high insulin levels, floating insulin, which turns into insulin resistance, where our pancreas and our body is not as sensitive to our own floating insulin anymore. By the time you realize it, prediabetes will turn into diabetes, and then you'll have to be medicated with different things. That is not a dig, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be on them, but you will eventually get on products like a metformin, and your hair will eventually start to thin out, because metformin sometimes doesn't allow you to get all of the necessary nutrients and vitamins from all of your food, because the fat content from your gallbladder and your liver changes from the metformin, and sometimes you excrete oil and your feces look like oil. Often, if you're on products like metformin, then you're not even able to really take advantage of all the nutrients. So it's a dynamic that I'm hoping you will not get yourself involved in after seeing this video. You have to analyze your diet and lifestyle a bit more closely, because it's Not something that I would want you to get stuck on medication and that medication hamster wheel. All it takes is you meal prepping every so often, not eating out as much, watching your portion quantities, watching how much sugar you eat. Maybe dilute some of your juices in your drinks, and try not to eat so much processed food, prepared food, food with a whole bunch of salt, sugar, sodium that is already in a box, a bag, or a drive-through window. You can tweak it and you can do it, because if our parents did it and our grandparents did it, although they did live a different time period, you can do it too. You just have to take an extra half hour or an hour out of your day to meal prep and make those healthy meals on your own. Some other side effects that can happen as a consequence of having high blood sugar from our diet and our lifestyle, which may lead to high insulin levels and insulin resistance, is liver fat. Now, as a certified trichologist, again, I counsel a lot of my clients who deal with liver fat. Liver fat occurs when we're eating too much sugar, too many large portions, which ultimately, if our body can't make use of it, what happens? The body's going to store it as fat. But not just any fat. That fat is stored in the liver. So when we're eating large portions of food that we don't need that extra large fry, we don't need that extra chicken nugget, we don't need that extra large soda and that soft drink. We can have water, we can skip the fries, we can skip the bread and wrap our chicken sandwich in a handful of lettuce. There are some things that we can do. It may not taste as good, but it'll protect your body. But that excess fat from the foods that are broken down into sugar, sometimes it's stored as subcutaneous tissue fat, sometimes it's adipose fat, sometimes it's visceral fat. But no, this is good old liver fat. And what happens with liver fat? Your liver is essentially inflamed, it's swollen, it's itchy. Liver fat is a swollen, fatty liver from too much sugar. So these are just some of the effects. As a certified trichologist, I'm most concerned with how your scalp is doing and how your body is affected by too much sugar. Insulin, before I continue, is a hormone. So when you're having problems on the top of your head from front to back, this is the dreaded hormonal zone. When you arrive here at SBL Hair Loss in Pleasantville, New Jersey for your appointment, I am subsequently evaluating your nutrition, because I'm a certified fitness and nutrition specialist as well as a certified trichologist. I am going to analyze your diet and pick it apart so I can share with you, this is the cause of why you're in this position, because of what it is that you're eating. When I see alcoholic drinks, soft drinks, a lot of prepared foods, sauces, spaghettis, jellies, jams, foods with a lot of sugar, a lot of salt, a lot of processing, I know most of my clients, in addition to their stress, in addition to any other hormonal issues that they may have going on, it is accelerated by their insulin and their insulin resistance. So another thing that happens, a side effect, which has nothing to do with hair and hair loss issues, is extended amounts of insulin and insulin resistance over time can cause you to become very loopy, very forgetful. And if you don't know it or not, insulin resistance is tightly tied to diabetes type 3, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So they're calling dementia and Alzheimer's diabetes type 3. And what is it? Insulin and insulin resistance, high blood sugar issues. So I hope this video helps make sense to you so that you can get some of that under control. Next is the metabolic component of what happens when you're dealing with too much insulin, too high levels of insulin, blood sugar, insulin, and then it knocks it back down. And what's left? Floating insulin. And you eat again, your insulin's back up again. Where does it go? Stuck in our adipose, our subcutaneous tissue, and our body. It's stored here. But over time, it can cause us to have higher than normal cholesterol levels. It can also cause issues with you metabolizing fat. It can cause your blood and your fat levels to get acidic and wind up causing you gallstones. Gallstones and kidney stones are some of the most painful things next to pregnancy and delivering a baby in the human spectrum and in the world. If you've ever passed a gallstone or a kidney stone, I hope you change your diet, because they will come back. that is a key signal to let you know you need to change your diet and your lifestyle. But having extended periods of high levels of insulin and insulin resistance, it will subsequently cause your cholesterol levels to rise. It will cause your vitamin D to not process effectively because all of this is manufactured and metabolized in the liver. The liver will have a tough time detoxifying your body. It will not be able to detoxify the hormones. So those hormones are free floating. They're not able to be detoxified, causing you more issues with hormonal disturbances on the top of your head. So you have to watch what it is that you're eating and what it is that you're consuming, because it will cause issues for your hair and scalp on the top of your head. So often when clients say to me, when they haven't met me, they reach my website and they say they want an appointment with me, and then they'll throw in, because they don't understand the value in what it is that we do, they'll say, well, what are your qualifications and what makes you different from a dermatologist? First of all, I am not. I am a cosmetologist of over 40 years. I've had my cosmetology license since 1987. I have been in the cosmetology and in the beauty space since I was in high school. I started my cosmetology program in 1985. I know a lot about skin, the scalp, and hair. I am also a cosmetology educator, a licensed cosmetologist, a salon owner. I am a certified trichologist and a functional medical practitioner, and also a certified fitness and nutrition expert. So a lot of what I bring to the table is life experience and knowledge of how all of the total body experience from all of the 11 body systems, how it relates to your hair and scalp. So lastly, another consequence of having high amounts of blood sugar in the body is how it affects the kidneys. The kidneys can cause sugars to back up into the kidneys. They will cause crystals, and those crystals will circulate, land in your kidneys, and they will circulate through your body in your joints, causing painful joints all over your body. And it can also lodge in your feet and your toes, causing gout. So when I told you that story about how my toes and my ankles felt earlier in this presentation, it's because I was dealing with the effects of insulin resistance. I had long since had problems with tendinitis, problems with arthritis in my hands, but because I didn't know, and it was earlier in my trichology experience, I had no idea I was suffering the effects of insulin resistance. The eye pain, the painful joints, the painful toes, all from insulin resistance. So it can cause the renal tubes to become inflamed. They'll back up from all of the sugars. They'll hold those crystals in the kidneys. Those kidneys can release those crystals all throughout the body and get lodged in the feet and the toes. So although this was a presentation about how it affects the hair and scalp, this was really about how insulin, blood sugar, insulin resistance affects the entire body. When you're having a challenge with your hair and scalp and you're ready to change your diet, change your lifestyle, and change the way you do things so that you can promote better scalp, better hair growth, reach out to me at hairlosscenternj.com. If you are ready, click the 15-minute button, schedule a free consultation so I can talk with you about your experience and what it is that you would like to do moving forward. If you're not interested in restoration, getting healthier, and regrowing your hair, maybe now is not the right time for you to reach out. Because what it is that I do as I serve the community, it's in a much larger capacity. It is not for the faint of heart, because once you start working with me, by the time you reach me, you're having some serious issues, and we need to help put a lot of things into perspective. What we do is not what a dermatologist does. Dermatologist work is a little bit different in their skill level. What we do is from a holistic perspective. We do not use Western medicine devices, scanning services. What we do is completely different. If you want to find out how we can serve your needs and give you the before and afters that you're looking for, visit us, hairlosscenternj.com, and visit the certified trichologist at SBLHairloss in Pleasantville, New Jersey.